Hello, everyone. Welcome to a brand new episode of the AvA podcast, where I sit down either by myself or with a guest and talk about which album fits under our niche umbrella best. This week, we have another special guest, first-time collaborator in general, but he's not just some stranger. I didn't just pick this guy up out of the woods and was like, let's talk about music. He's a new friend, someone that I've gotten to talk to here and there about tunes and all the sort. And we got another one artist, different avenues cast for you. It is he's an independent artist, you could say. He does his own music. He does podcasting of his own. He does film work. He's an interesting guy, and I feel like it would be cool to have him on the cast. It's my buddy Thomas Houy. Thomas, welcome to the cast.
Hello, thanks for having me. First off, I love the way you did that. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to get into this, start digging deep into some music. So let's dive into it.
Yeah, so for those who aren't aware, for those who are new to the cast, because we always got people popping in from time to time, how the cast works is I presented Thomas with some ideas out there. There's one in particular that we latched onto. We're going to debate it. He's going to give his case, I'm going to give mine, and we'll go back and forth in there. But before we dive into that, as some longtime viewers or comeback viewers may know, as we do before that, we kind of wrap up any sort of lingering threads that may have been come through the last cast. So if you're listening to this cast, and by the end of it, you've heard our arguments, and we missed something, and you want to bounce into the conversation, hop into those comments down below, and I will address any pertinent ones on the next cast like I'm going to do for the last cast right now. So before we get into the comment breakdown, because we do have a couple of people who brought some stuff to talk about, I want to thank John again for coming on. Really happy with how that episode turned out, and I feel like he's always a pal. It's cool to see him come through with that fresh commentary, that fresh discussion with me about the Red Hot Chili Peppers. But we had a couple peeps in the comments. Seth Kopish talked about sort of reinforcing the sentiments that we had about John Frusciante coming back, and sort of John's perspective on wanting to, or potentially probably going to, explore more the sounds that were done on Stadium Arcadium. And then Brady Madison, shout out once again to Brady. He said that he was siding with One Hot Minute as well. He thought that the album, Dave Navarro had way more of an influence on the album's sound. The tone and the guitars definitely just felt more rich, in the darker tone that he may have been toyed with and brought in from Jane's Addiction, or his own sounds sort of were more resonant. He even included how Josh mentioned feeling like the odd man out with I'm With You, and you could definitely feel that in the sounds of the record. He even went so far as to say that he was done a bit dirty by the Peppers, because he actually loves his musicianship and likes a lot of the records or a lot of his sound that he does on his own and his solo work, which I think is interesting, because he even said that it feels more like just a everybody but Josh record. And that was kind of some of the points that John didn't fully cement on, but Brady kind of brought up more as like a part of that. You know, we talked about Josh's sounds and how they were different, but he definitely, like Brady, kind of focused more on how Josh might have actually felt like an outsider to the band, even when recording the record, even though they did do a lot of stuff like with the B-side U sessions and stuff. So yeah, just a couple of comments to bring up. And again, if you have any pertinent things you want to say about things we say in the following rest of the cast, bring it up in those comments down below. But without further ado, let's get back to me from back then. So Thomas, do you like the Red Hot Chili Peppers? Are you a fan of the Red Hot Chili Peppers?
You know, I've never actually heard one of their songs, but I like their t-shirts. Their t-shirts are pretty cool, and as a food, they are pretty tasty to eat, especially with some ranch. So I think I'm a big fan.
Hey, you heard it here. Quality food, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. So, what do you like to put them on things? Do you like to use them as like an accoutrement, or do you just like them by themselves?
I like them on like sandwiches, like a good sandwich with like some thick bread and then some hot peppers. That's always
Ooh,
good. Like I
ooh,
said, dip
yeah.
them in some ranch or some like yeah, just some spread, maybe some like maybe throw some like chorizo ranch spread or something, just something, a little something,
Ooh.
just to snack on.
Okay. No, I like the sound of that. I like the sound of that. Well, hey, we always got curveballs here on the AVA podcast, but you ready to talk about some Kanye West?
Oh, for sure, for sure. My favorite thing to
So,
talk about.
like I said up at the top, I hit Thomas with some ideas, and we both settled on one that revolves Kanye dipping his toes in other artists with other artists, kind of having a collaborative sort of prospect. And the question I hit Thomas was, which Kanye collaboration project feels more representative of both artists conceptually, lyrically, production wise, all that sort of stuff. And Thomas here, he's going to argue for Kids See Ghosts, and I figured I'd go ahead and just open the floor for you. Thomas, why do you think
So,
Kids See Ghosts does that better?
so first off, I'm gonna tell you why. So I think I'm at a disadvantage first of all because Kanye produced for Jay-Z originally, so they already collaborated, right?
Well, so did him and Kid
So
Cudi.
yeah, that's true, and that's what I'm gonna talk about right now. So I listened to some old Kid Cudi cuts, in "Erase Me" by Kid Cudi on "Man on the Moon's Second." You listen to that song, it almost would fit perfectly in this album. So I dug deep into it, and when I was listening to like kind of contrasting some of Cudi's stuff compared to this album, I was already pretty familiar with Kanye West, and Kanye West does a good job of kind of checking his ego at the door, and Kid Cudi's vibes and sonics kind of really take this record over, which is a good thing because I think Kanye does a good job kind of filtering all the bad and kind of weird stuff, I guess you can say, that Kid Cudi does, like the songs that just have no verses and are just kind of a repeating a mantra, I guess. But yeah, like Kid Cudi is great at doing choruses. That's probably one of his strong suits, and this album's rich with them. You can feel the love in all of his choruses. But
I can still feel it, yeah.
yeah, yeah. He also has a good mixture of genres, and Kanye's good at kind of sneaking into all of them. Kanye's always famous for sampling, but I think here he kind of shows his strengths as kind of like mixing and kind of bringing people together. He's not always been the strongest musician technically wise, but he's really good at kind of bringing people together to make a project. And that's why he's so good at collaborating, especially with Kid Cudi, because he bounces Kid Cudi's crazy ideas with even crazier ideas and makes them work. So that's
Okay.
kind of some of the reasons I like this record. It sounds a lot like Man on the Moon, like I said, but you can tell Kanye West is just the biggest Kid Cudi fan.
Yeah,
Biggest.
because I mean, he helped. Honestly, in a weird way, as Kanye was to Jay-Z, as far as like a protege, someone that Jay kind
Yeah.
of brought up in the scene. Kanye definitely brought Cudi up. They're both from
Yeah.
Kanye's
Do you know
from
how they met?
Chicago. I don't know how they met.
So Kid Cudi was at a record store, and Kanye just happened to be there, and Kid Cudi begged for a chance, and Kanye kind of dismissed him a little bit, and I believe the story goes Kid Cudi kind of gave him a CD, and Kanye just kind of listened to it a little bit, liked it, and then of course you get some great records like the ones that you hear on 808s and Heartbreaks, which is a great record on its own right. So yeah, it's kind of interesting that Kanye kind of was a mentor to a Kid Cudi. So that's another thing that's interesting about these albums is you have Kanye's mentee with Jay-Z making an album with him, and then you have Kanye's protege with Kid Cudi and the collaborative album Kids See Ghosts. So
Yeah.
very interesting stuff.
Well, and that's
And,
that was the one thing. Oh, sorry.
um,
What were you gonna say?
So I was gonna say a lot of these sounds either sound like Man on the Moon or they sound straight off Passion, Pain, and Demon slang. Like Reborn, I'm pretty sure that song had to be like a B-side to that album. So Kanye either did a really good job of kind of making songs that revolve around Kid Cudi's universe, or he actually just stole songs from those albums that didn't make it. So
Well, I mean, even Cudi Montage, like the production on that, definitely has that same kind of sounds to it for sure.
yeah,
Well, and it's interesting because this project was also kind of teased throughout the Colorado sessions, also with on Ye,
yeah,
with Ghost Town. So I mean, it
yes.
definitely there's a lot more. There was a lot more general ambiguity with this project, whereas like as far as like its pre sort of rollout. But I feel like when Watch the Throne was like immediately started, that was like very much the opposite case, you know.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. And that was a part of the reason why I felt like, even though we do niche weird questions on this show, when we decide to pick an artist, or when I decide to pick an artist to do an insular episode on, it's usually in an instance like this. Do you think that any of the collaborations on Kids See Ghosts detract from the overall tone and style of the record, like Pusha T or Ty Dolla $ign or anything like that?
So Ty Dolla $ign does a fine job. Of course, if it's a collaborative album with Kid Cudi and Kanye West, you'd like to see Kid Cudi kind of take that role. But Ty Dolla $ign does it fine. The thing that I didn't understand, and this was also kind of my problem with Watch the Throne, is both albums start with someone else. Watch the Throne starts with Frank Ocean singing. Kids See Ghosts starts with Pusha T's verse. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, if this is a collaborative album, I wish they would have kicked it off kind of with their voices first. But so that's kind of why I don't like the Pusha T's verse there. It's not necessarily that I don't like the verse. I just don't like it to kick off the album.
Yeah. Or even, I forgot, Mos Def is also on this record. It's a Kids See Ghosts is a weird piece of, because it was also sort of a part of a bigger picture. If you look at Kanye as like an artist throughout the Colorado sessions, because he did the Pusha T record, he did his own stuff, he did this. Do you think that this stands above all of those projects that he was working on at the time?
So I'm not the biggest fan of Ye, even though I think Kanye is probably top 3 artists for me. I wasn't the biggest fan of Ye. Pusha T's album, of course, you got the big Drake diss that kind of stood out.
Yeah.
But my favorite album from this, surprisingly, was one you didn't mention. Is Nasir.
Dude, Nas's record fucking slaps, dude.
Yeah, I actually bought that on vinyl. I accidentally also bought Ye on vinyl. I sold that.
Oh no. Yeah.
But no, it's like Adam and Eve, great track. There's a lot of
Cop Shot the Kid.
Yeah,
Like that.
Cop Shot the Kid.
Fucking incredible.
As a white man, it kind of makes you think and kind of look deeper and dig deeper, and that's something Nas has been doing way back when he started. But with Kanye's production on it, with kind of, I don't want to say glitchy beats, but he did his best like Dilla impersonation with these kind of like just punchy beats that kind of just hit you right in the chest with the percussion.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I love Nasir. Out of all those albums, of course you have Tiana Taylor's album that was very scandalous, I guess you can say, which is always enjoyable as an R&B fan. So yeah, I liked all these albums. I think the worst one sadly was Ye. Kids See Ghosts is a good one that you always kind of find yourself returning to. But there's not necessarily a big song on Kids See Ghosts that you could just like throw on a playlist. So it's definitely kind of like a weird side trip that you'd listen to in a buddy's basement while he's drinking beer. Like that's kind of how this album feels. But that's not a bad thing whatsoever. Like it's something like that you have to listen to start to finish, which is how albums really kind of should be. The only reason they aren't is because commercialization. But yeah, it's all in all, it's a good album. And those Colorado sessions definitely was like a new stepping stone for Kanye, and hopefully Kid Cudi with his new record can grow upon that and what he learned from Kanye in these sessions.
Well put. And to bounce off of the point you just made, what I think sets Watch the Throne apart from Kids See Ghosts is that it is, like I said earlier, when it was announced, it was like an event. You know, they dropped Ham, they dropped Otis, they dropped In Paris. You know, they dropped all of these singles that made a statement, or they were at least trying to do something bold, and the record itself embodies that with its super bright cover. A lot of its lyrics either delve into the grandiosity of that even more with its opener, No Church in the Wild, or lift off comparing their success to rocket ships, or just, again, in Paris being this provocative track. They sample that Blades of Glory clip. I mean, it kind of is indicative of the track itself. There's the whole record itself feels like this practice in excessiveness that I feel like is supposed to be enigmatic of being the throne. There's a lot of lavishness, or, like I said, grandiosity portrayed. The production doesn't always lean into that, because there's some tracks like Welcome to the Jungle with Swizz Beatz that have more of that synthetic edge that feels more indicative of its time. But I feel like a lot of the record itself, especially given that Jay was the guy who made bling rap that much more popular, by being one of the most successful and one of the best at doing that, he brought that mentality to a higher place on Watch the Throne that I feel like also kind of inspired where his career went after that with Magna Carta Holy Grail. But Kanye, in tandem with that, also kind of does his own sort of he melds with those mentalities and a lot of the song topics very fluidly. Kanye is wasn't, I guess, necessarily as, I don't want to say braggadocious. He was always all over the map prior to this, but he was also riding a big high, having just dropped Dark Fantasy, one of his highest regarded records even to this day. So he was riding a big wave coming into this project, and I feel like riding into this record, you feel that. His charisma is on 10. On In Paris, he's talking about not letting him get into his zone. On Otis, he's just basically getting very boisterous in the cut in a way that feels a little different for him, because he likes to wallow in a sadness. He likes to get emotional. He likes to get reflective. He had done that a lot. Graduation may have been like the highest energy he had prior to this as far as like celebratory, but this whole album feels like a victory lap for Kanye and just a reaffirmation of Jay's ability to still go in when he wants to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say it's kind of like a victory lap, because you think of when this album was kind of released, right at the beginning of the next decade, right? So he started his kind of rise to power in the early 2000s with producing, releasing his first few couple records, which of course are still said to be his best. People still like to say, I miss the old Kanye. Kanye even himself says that.
Yeah.
So it is kind of like a victory lap to kind of almost close out the decade. And I wouldn't say he's boisterous, because he gets self-aware a lot on the record, but I think it's kind of like a point of kind of what he's preaching is like that, yeah, with all this money and success I have, I'm going to be egotistical. It's hard not to be. So it's kind of interesting, especially comparing when you go from Graduation to 808s and Heartbreaks to My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, and then back again to Watch the Throne. It's like he does a full circle, kind of. So it's interesting, and I'm glad that like he definitely takes that Jay-Z kind of charisma. He kind of takes everything he learned from Jay-Z and packages it in a nice, neat package. But there's also a lot of tracks that, he grew up listening to, like when he listened to Nas or Mos Def, that are insightful and talking about like police rioting with No Church in the Wild. So it's definitely
Murder
a
to
good
Excellence
mixture
as well. Yeah,
but,
Murder to Excellence, I mean, they talk about that kind of stuff as well. It's great.
Yeah, and you can definitely tell, like you said, a sign of the times, because you listen to it and there's something in the background that just keeps reminding yourself of like late 2000s pop music, and you just like, I can like feel myself listening to this on the radio 10 years ago, which it's not a bad thing. Of course not. If it's on the radio, usually it's very successful or catchy. But again, with this album, it's very heavy on features, which is kind of weird for me for like a collaborative album. But he also like not only is he, I feel like when he's sampling, he's comparing himself and Jay-Z to these greats like Otis Redding, like Nina Simone,
James Brown, Nina
yeah,
Simone.
yeah, exactly. So it kind of seems like he's comparing himself to these great artists that happen to share the same skin tone. I'm sure that has to do something with it, and kind of saying like,
oh yeah,
we are the new, like the new these people. We're the new James Brown. James Brown. We're the new Nina Simone. We're the new Otis Redding. Stuff like that. So it's pretty interesting to watch the throne because yeah, like you said, I feel like the whole thing is like, we're at the top. What are you gonna do about it?
Oh, absolutely. The whole record, even when it gets reflective, like on New Day, the Nina Simone sample song, where they're being reflective in a way to their unborn sons, they still do it in a way where they talk about the excess, they talk about the fame. It still feels incorporated in a majority of the tracks. Not all of them, because there are ones that dip even heavier into that more topical territory. But a lot of it seems to sort of celebrate black excellence in a way that I feel like not necessarily felt fresh at the time, because there were still artists like Jay-Z was still, like, he came up again, one of the dudes that popularized bling rap and stuff like that. But it just felt like that mentality on 10 in all regards, you know. And I feel like if we're talking about making a collaborative experience, if you're gonna make a record about Jay-Z, a dude who came up in that lane while having his own, again, come up and his own reflection on that, a lot of it feels right as far as like the topics, some of the sample work. Again, a lot of the non-synthesized heavy production, because even No Church in the Wild, like those drums in the beginning, it feels very grand in scope, you know. Yes. And it feels like with Frank's sort of the chorus of that song, the what's human beings in a mob, what's a mob to a king, that whole group, that whole phrasing, just I feel like, even though I kind of agree on it shouldn't be those guys like Pusha or Frank Ocean starting the record, it feels like a good siren song to start the record off on, as far as like the mentality to get you into it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And I guess I didn't look at it in that way, but it's interesting you say that, because I guess when you look at the whole first, I guess you can say, chorus of No Church in the Wild, it feels like you're zooming in to like problems in the world and zooming back out. And it feels like it's kind of like dipping into some of the things that they are going to be talking about in the album. So like when you look at it from the big scope, yeah, you see them being braggy and all this. When you deep into it, they start talking about like finances, and it's not just like it didn't just happen to them. They're not just rich and forgetting about their past life or anything. So I guess it's interesting how you put it like that.
Well, and in the instance of Kids See Ghosts, it kind of starts off on a similar foot with, because it does start off with Cudi's I Can Still Feel the Love, and that sort of feels indicative of that project, you know, because like that whole record, and that's sort of the comparison of Watch the Throne being a project that had its staples, had its singles, had its big moments, but the whole record feels paced like that. It's not like Kids See Ghost, where it's an album experience. You sit down and you feel the love throughout the entire experience, whether it's that track or Fourth Dimension. You know, a lot of the record itself has that, but I feel like what sets Watch the Throne apart from that, in my opinion, is, again, Kids See Ghosts has Cudi, and it's a very Cudi. You can tell Cudi's hands are on this, because Cudi's one of those dudes, you know when he's there. You can hear him. He's just humming in the background somewhere.
Right when he starts humming, right when he starts his weird mumble auto-tune that's kind of words, but not really.
Yeah. Whereas with Jay, his presence, his personality more shines in who he has with him. And that's where I feel like that collaborative aspect I almost feel like drives that mentality that the sort of mission statement of the record's going for, of we are the throne, we are, even what you said, we are the new excellence. It's doing that in a way that feels indicative of Jay-Z, because Jay-Z never was just, I mean, he does stand on his own, but he also loves to bring as many people up as he can. And throwing Frank Ocean on this project, who at the time was not quite as big as he became.
Do you know the story about Frank Ocean?
Beating Jay? No.
So Beyonce had heard Nostalgia Ultra, and I guess when they were driving to some event, I forget what event, Beyonce just started playing them, and Jay-Z immediately was like, "Who's this?" And within the next morning, they flew in Frank Ocean to not only work on Jay-Z's records, but also work on Beyonce's record.
That's awesome. That's really awesome, man. It's cool to see those that are that big in the general pop realm or the general populace in the top tier or the top of it, bringing somebody like that in, you know. But even in that instance, you know, Beyonce's also on here. That's obviously going to happen if it's a Jay-Z project post them being married. You know, they always have a track together. But yeah, it's indicative of the record itself as far as who's on it, who's doing this, who's doing that. We're going to show not just us. It is collaborative in that essence because the spirit of Kanye and Jay are here and they're still the forefront, but peeling back the layers, you see a lot of other elements that continue to cement or throttle that idea of top tier, the most lavish, the best as it were. With those two sort of at the head of it all. It's like a well-oiled machine at that point, you know what I mean?
It's interesting that you said we were talking about a collaborative album, and yeah, it doesn't just feel like a Kanye West and Jay-Z collaborative album. It feels like all these great African-American artists collaborating together, whether alive or not. So it kind of feels like not only a celebration of their success, but like you said, a celebration of all Black success throughout history.
It's awesome. I'm curious though, because one of the things you had said prior to this is you got some dirt, you got some beef. I want you to hit me with it, man. I want you to hit me with some of that shit.
So I guess it's not really beef. I guess it's more just like Watch the Throne got way more attention than Kids See Ghost. Kids See Ghost was there's 5 pots on the burner. They're just one of the pots, right? But Watch the Throne was this is what everyone in good music's focus is going to be for however long we make this. So that's why it sounds so polished and sounds so radio ready. Not saying that's a bad thing, but yeah, it definitely got everyone's full attention. So it brought the best out of everything. Although Kids See Ghost is an amazing album and Watch the Throne is also an amazing album. Yeah, it's interesting to see like the differences of an album that Kanye West both made almost 10 years apart.
So it's interesting that you bring that up because, like, for me, from my perspective, it's almost the complete opposite because in the blogosphere, in like a lot of the scene that I guess have been in for so long, Kids See Ghost was like this well-praised, like, phoenix. This, like, this rare, like, I wanted to kind of hop in here for a second to do an editor's note, which I don't normally do for the podcast, but I'm about to go on a little speech about the praise that Fantano gave it and I gave it, but that doesn't necessarily mean the collective internet as a whole did love it. I will say that I feel like it got more attention than the other stuff from the Wyoming sessions, even Kanye's own record, but Pitchfork only gave it like a 7.6. I know Mark from Spectrum Pulse isn't the biggest fan of it. John reviewed it, which I think in and of itself is different because he doesn't necessarily always cover Kanye related stuff, but he gave it a 7. Deep Cuts I know didn't really like it, but I just kind of wanted to preface this little section of the podcast before I start to talk about the collective internet's opinion about one project. I liked it. Fantano really liked it. It has a bold on Rate Your Music, but I also feel like it just also got more reach. It was more spread across the internet than other parts of these sessions, which was part of the point that I was getting at that I didn't quite get to because I was wrapped up in talking about mine and Fantano's opinions on this record. I don't know if you know who Anthony Fantano is. He's like this really big...
You mean Melon Drop?
The Needle Drop. Yeah, the
Needle Drop. Yeah, Mr. Melon.
Yeah, Mr. Mellencamp. He gave it a 10.
Himself.
I myself, when this record came out, I gave it a lot of praise. I
Yeah.
thought it was
because
great.
it's a mint, right? It's a gem. It's something fresh in your mouth. Watch the Throne was kind of more the same from Jay-Z, kind of a little bit different from Kanye. But then when you look at what Kanye was doing around the time, feature-wise, it was kind of in Kanye's like realm. So
oh yeah, it was definitely like
yeah.
at the time it felt like it is wheelhouse.
Yeah. So it was kind of just like, oh, here's however long the album is, here's just more of it. Here's more of what you've been hearing the last 2 years.
And the other thing is like, and I don't know if you had known this, but "Feel the Love" is in a Fast and the Furious trailer. Like the song is.
I did not know that.
It threw me through a fucking loop. I was watching it just because I was like, what shitty thing is this movie gonna pull out now?
Was this after Paul Walker had died? Was this like an ode?
It's
to
the
Paul
newest
Walker?
one. It's the one that's coming out.
Okay.
It's the one that's coming out. Yeah. It's in the trailer. And I was like, why is Kids See? Because again, like you said, it's not Kids See Ghost is not a record like Watch the Throne.
Yeah, it sounds like two gigantic artists trying to be a boy band. But it works.
Yeah, it's fucking bizarre, but I think one of the reasons why Kids See Ghost also just kind of blew people's minds is that it felt fresh. In the way that it reinvigorated the spirits of two artists that people in the critical scene, myself included, didn't think they had this capacity to them. Because I like Kid Cudi a lot, and I even really like Passion Pain Demon Slaying. I think it's a really solid record.
I think that's honestly, like, not even like jokingly, that's my favorite album from Kid Cudi.
Really? Why is that? I'm curious because that's a really interesting statement.
So this is gonna be kind of a long story, and for those of you that don't really know me, I grew up in the country, right? I grew up in a town with 500 people, so I was a big country hick fan. So I didn't really get into hip hop until I listened to. Of course, I listened to 808s and Heartbreaks back in the day, but I didn't know that was Kanye, right? So I kind of got back into hip hop through Passion Pain and Demon Slaying, and Travis Scott's 2013 album. So those two albums kind of reset me into like hip hop and R&B. So I guess maybe it's nostalgia, which is weird to say because I feel like it was only a few years ago. But yeah, Passion Pain and Demon Slaying, just with kind of just like I just love synthesizers and kind of just like weird moments in music, and it just felt like a whole trip. And I think that's what Kid Cudi's good for.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so I think just a whole, it's kind of a good album. But I also get flack because Birds in the Trap Sing is my favorite Travis Scott album, which is like everyone's least favorite. So I mean, yeah, I guess I just like every artist's worst album. I guess.
I don't think I mean in the circumstances of Kid Cudi, you could like records like Satellite Flight or Speed and Bullet more, and you'd be kind of But no, I thought Passion Pain was like a good return to form, and as somebody who is a big Kanye critic, I think Kanye used to be great, but he has been so inconsistent over the last 10 years. It's insane.
Yeah.
But to see him and Kid Cudi actually make something as good as Kids See Ghosts was mind-blowing.
Especially how disappointing Ye was.
Yeah, I hated Ye too. So okay, what's your beef with Ye? Because I don't like it either.
So my beef with Ye is that he would not stop talking about sex. And I understand that's like hip hop, but when he starts like, I could have me a Naomi Campbell, still might need me a Stormy Daniels. Like, why do I need that in a song?
So it's funny you mentioned that, but like hip hop, especially in 2018 and now, is not nearly the beast that it used to be. That's why artists like Jay-Z have had to sort of reinvent their own wheel with records like 444. Their old hats don't work, but for me, Ye was also just a mixed bag because, and it could be just indicative of Kanye really letting his bipolar disorder get out of control, but it feels like a record made by somebody who is having bipolar issues, and the album art is super fitting, but in a way that I don't think is great because the songs outside of Ghost Town and a couple of other moments aren't great. Yeah,
it definitely like it fits together. Like it definitely fits as a puzzle, but the picture of the puzzle isn't pretty. Like, it's not a puzzle you necessarily want to put together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas, again, just Kids See Ghosts just feels like this magical moment in time, as far as like the Colorado. It's my favorite of the Colorado sessions personally. I liked Nazir a lot. I'd probably be my second favorite, and then Pusha T's record, just because I think the best thing conceptually outside of Kids See Ghosts that Kanye did was make a really concise Pusha T record. My issue with this project is they're too long, but
what, 7 tracks?
No, but that newest record was not. It was super tight. It was super concise. Like, he made a great, concise Pusha T record that let Pusha still shine in a great way.
Well, it's interesting because when Pusha T was kind of new to the scene, and kind of just like featuring stuff, you could tell he was just kind of like a feature artist. Like, he was just kind of an artist have, and like the background of like a chorus happens. He says 16, like he speaks 16 bars, and then like the real artist takes over. But it was cool to see it progress. Like, this was the first album that he had that sounded actually like his album.
Well, no, so like it's funny you mentioned that, but he like Pusha T is actually been on I don't know. Do you know who Clips are?
I believe so. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's his group.
Clips.
With his brother.
Yeah, his group.
Yeah, his group with his brother. Yeah. So, like, it's interesting that you say that because I feel like him doing solo work definitely feels like a weird pivot, but the direction he's taken his career as a solo artist is, I think, the interesting part about it. And, again, Daytona was just sort of what I had been wanting since I got into Pusha's solo work. I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kanye. Thank you for pulling him in a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. One of the other things to sort of tie up this one loose thread about the records itself is the Instagram. I have an Instagram. I put polls on there for the show all the time. Usually episodes I'm gonna make episodes on. And do you want to know the results for the poll as far as who people agreed with more?
Do I want the results?
Yeah. Do you want to know?
Hell yeah, I want the results.
Yeah. People agreed with you, and that they think that Kids See Ghost,
as they should,
it fulfills it more. It's a 14-8 vote, so 64% thought Kids See Ghost did the better creative sort of collaborative experience. And it probably, a lot of it could stem from a lot of the stuff that you said, I definitely think that as a unit, it feels more like a Kanye Cudi experience as opposed to this big blockbuster. It's the difference between like a blockbuster and indie film. An indie film feels like this
That's
intimate
a great
feeling.
way to put it.
Whereas Watch the Throne feels like a big budget like experience. And I would agree with you as well because I like Watch the Throne a bit, but I feel like Kids See Ghost definitely creatively, especially, sort of accomplishes more in such a fewer minutes. Like it just feels like this big experience, like we had said,
Yeah, for sure, and it's interesting that like people agreed with me. I think some of it has to do with recency bias. Maybe there's been a lot of Jay-Z slander recently, but I think that just albums can be too long sometimes, and I think Watch the Throne has a severe case of being a bit too long. So,
absolutely, that's why I made a show about fucking up the sequencing of records and making them better. So I definitely I agree with you there. But no, I definitely do. You think so? Like I said with Watch the Throne, Jay-Z definitely feels like he, after Watch the Throne, wanted to take that concept of grandiosity and excess to the next level with Magna Carta Holy Grail, a record that I think is one of his weakest in his catalog, just because it was too much of I am so rich, you will never own this much money. But Cudi, like you said, he just dropped a new record, Man on the Moon 3. So what do you think about Man on the Moon 3?
So, first of all, I don't know how long it took him to make this album, but it definitely sounded like a lot of unfinished ideas, in a case where he kind of just repeats the chorus just like 8 times, and then that's the end of the one of the records. That doesn't mean it's bad necessarily. It's definitely catchy. And one of Kid Cudi's biggest selling points is that he's repeatable. He's easy to listen to in a lyrical standpoint, and he's easy to relate to in that way as well. But what's good about Kid Cudi is his just awkward instrumentation, right? So the instrumentation on this album was fantastic. You definitely had some more like, I wouldn't say like trap influenced, but the drums weren't necessarily. Just the percussion was more computerized and synthesized than some of his previous work, which I'm a fan of. I know that probably isn't a popular opinion in the realm of music because everything shouldn't be synthesized. But yeah, there's
my
something
favorite
about
album is
just
a
like,
synth pop record from 1989. So
well, that's perfect.
I kind of
my my favorite album is a synth orchestra record from 1978.
Hell yeah.
So we're
dude.
good. Yeah, Blade Runner soundtrack. Piece of
Yeah, Vangelis fucking slays, bro.
Yes. Yeah, he's something else. He got me into synths. Probably spent too much money on synths, but it's okay.
I mean, synths are great.
Yeah, so Kid Cudi's new record is definitely, I guess if we put it in Fantano terms, I'll give it like a light 7. But
so do you think, because it's out, and I wouldn't say it sounds like an offshoot of Kid See Goes, it definitely feels like a Kid Cudi project. Do you think that he did? Do you think he still looked at a lot of his proteges or a lot of people that were directly inspired by him, like a Travis Scott, and try to incorporate some of where his realm of psychedelic rap has gone post Man on the Moon 2?
So if you gave me the record and just wrote Kid Cudi album on it, with no name, no picture, I would think it was Passion, Pain, and Demon Slaying 2.
Okay.
Because it does have a lot of that kind of rappier style to it. And it kind of, and a lot of his old, like, I guess it's more like faster paced than Passion, Pain, and Demon Slaying. But yeah, it definitely has like a more like polished like feel to it than like a Speeding Bullets to Heaven or even a Man on the Moon, because a lot of the Man on the Moon albums are kind of all over the place, but really outside of that sample of the astronaut, it really doesn't feel like an otherworldly album, which I know he tries to get that feeling of, especially on the Man on the Moons. It definitely feels like it's grounded in the year 2020, not not like on Mars in 2073 like a lot of his other projects kind of expired kind of wanted to be.
Yeah. One other sort of tangential, because Kid Cudi's honestly on like a really big resurgence, it seems like, ever since, again, Passion Pain. He's been sort of bleeding in. He's got his album with Travis Scott coming out, apparently.
The Scotts.
Yeah, I'm stoked on that.
Yeah. How'd you like the single?
I thought it was good. I thought it was a bit of a teaser. It was a bit of a soft teaser. I felt like I got glimpses of what they were going to do. I like the sound. I like the vibe of the track, but it definitely felt like an appetizer. I wanted more from it in a very good way.
Yeah, so I'm assuming it's probably going to kick off the album. Like, it's probably going to be it's probably going to be like the anthem to the Scotts, like their kind of theme song. I wish Kid Cudi would have tried to enunciate better in the track, but that's really all I have against it.
That's fair. And actually, jumping back to Kid See Goes for a second, I don't know if you knew this because I forgot about it until 2 seconds ago, but they're going to have a cartoon based on it.
Yeah,
I don't know if you knew that.
The same artist that made the album design is going to design it, correct?
Yeah, it's got Kanye Bear and Kid Fox.
Okay, yep, Return of Kanye Bear. I'm glad to see that.
Yeah. Do you think that sort of idea fits the mood of the album? Because to me, the album feels a lot drearier than something that would go on like a cartoon show,
Yeah, well, if it's gonna go on Cartoon Network, for sure it doesn't fit. But if it's gonna be on something else, whatever channel it's on, they'll probably release it on like KanyeWest.com or something. But
it's true.
I mean, cartoons can be really anything you want, right? Like that's a good thing about
Yeah.
cartoons. So
Yeah.
maybe it's not gonna be this big, flashy, bright, vibrant cartoon. But I'm sure they'll come up with something that fits the album because they came up with 7 tracks that fit the album. So I'm sure
It's true.
they can dive into that universe again. I'm glad it's not live action, and I hope it's kind
Oh
of
yeah.
I hope it kind of is heavily influenced by the cover art, and it's not going to be just some kind of, I don't want to say half-assed, but dollar store version of the design.
So do you think? Because I mean, like you said, I mean, I know that cartoons aren't necessarily just a kid's thing.
Yeah.
But with the overall tone of the trailer, because I remember them being like kids on a school bus. That's what kind of made me kind of like, what? Do you think it would be more in the realms of like a psychedelics through like a show like Super Jail? I don't know if you're familiar with like a lot of Adult Swim's lineup, but yeah, their show Super Jail was like super trippy and weird.
Yeah.
And I think it could pull it off in that sort of regard.
Yeah.
I'm really hesitant personally, also partially because of where Kanye is now. I don't know if he'd want to make a show in that vein, or if he'd want to make it more presentable to a demographic like a kid's demographic. You know what I mean?
Well, in my personal opinion, if the show's gonna work, you have to dive deep into not only Kid Cudi's personal life, but Kanye's personal life. And if it's gonna, once you said the school bus thing, one particular thing about Kanye did kind of ring into my mind. One thing about Kanye is he does like to be like complain about being alone, but then he likes to make himself alone. But I don't know if you knew this. Kanye lived in China for 2 years in his infancy, in his
Really?
youth. Yep. So his mother moved there with him, and I guess he would beatbox to make money on the streets. So if you kind of dive into that realm, and kind of, I would assume he would be. I'm assuming he didn't speak Mandarin, and China can be very mean to dark complected people. So if you kind of dive into the feelings that he felt as a youth, in China, maybe being different, no one speaks your language, being completely alone with only one person to talk to, and they're working all the time. If they do something about that and kind of bring a lot of great instrumentation into it, then that definitely can be something that a lot of people can relate to, and definitely would fit the mood of the album.
That's definitely that's a good point to bring up, man. Coming at me with this Kanye and Cudi facts too. I really appreciate that.
Oh, no problem.
I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily have much else to tangent off of those two records. I do think that personally, I don't know if I'd want to see them try to follow this up, only because I feel like a project like this, and it'd be interesting maybe to see how the show goes over as far as recapturing that vibe or trying to channel that vibe in a different avenue. But I feel like with where Cudi is and his sort of dipping into so many different pots right now, he just dropped this new record. He's working on with Travis Scott. I don't know if he'd be able to provide the same level of attention he may have given to Kids See Ghosts. And Kanye, I never know what to fucking expect with that guy. So... Yeah. Well, I would be hesitant to hear more from Kids See Ghosts, at least. I don't know about you.
Well, what I've heard from Yandi, which who knows would actually be an album.
Yeah.
But you know the leak stuff, you never know if that's real music or not, or if something he's working with for someone else or whatever. But that's always like, that's good. And that kind of tastes like it kind of sounds like Kids See Ghost, in a way, with kind of the distorted beats and kind of slow paced music. Kind of, I guess, just super wide choruses. But then again, I don't feel like Kanye can even focus on the same idea for longer than 10 minutes. Like, I feel like his mind is just racing. So I think it would be hard to even, because you look back, what's the last album that was concise and consistent with Kanye? Probably My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy.
I'd say Life of Pablo, but that's only because he was channeling both avenues in a way that was conducive. He was trying to channel that old Kanye and where he was at now in that split road he may have been facing emotionally in a pretty gratifying, concise manner.
Yeah, but then again, you listen to some of those songs on Life of Pablo, and you listen to something like Ultralight Beam compared to 30 Hours, it sounds like two completely different artists, which isn't a bad thing. But like I said, I don't feel like he focuses on the same topic for a while to make a whole
And
album at least.
that's what I'm saying. That's what makes Life of Pablo work so well.
Yeah,
Because a record
yeah,
like Yeezus has a similar issue, but
yes,
the production is what sort of ties that record together in its own way.
mm-hmm.
Life of Pablo tries to do what I feel like he was trying to do again on Ye, but a lot better. And it may be
Yeah,
because he gave himself more time to work on it. He did more as far as like making more songs to try and make. Is Life of Pablo perfect? No. But I feel like as far as if we're talking about a concise
yeah,
idea, I feel like Life of Pablo does something. What was the last record or prospect by Kanye that would do that? Because even Jesus is King, for all of its trying to be a Christian rap album,
yeah,
it has this shallow sense of what that really means.
yeah, for
Um,
sure. And maybe it's just time with Kanye because between Yeezus and Life of Pablo, he had 3 years, right?
yeah,
And there's this famous story about Ye. He had a whole album done, scrapped it, and then 3 weeks later
hmm
released Ye. So maybe it has to do with time, even though there's some great tracks on Ye, like you said, Ghost Town, um, stuff like that. Like, yeah, there's great albums, or great songs on the album, but then you listen to a bunch of the other songs on the album, and the first song just talks about him saying how much he loves himself, but then he also like is suicidal, which how deep
yeah.
that is, it wasn't musically sound. So yeah, I maybe it's just time with Kanye. Maybe if you give him a
Oh
few
yeah,
years, maybe he'll release a great album again. I have faith in him because of course like all of his first 6 albums are legendary rap
you you
albums.
you love you some Kanye.
I do love me some I love me some Kanye almost as much as Kanye loves himself some Kanye. So I have faith in him. I hope he's not too old to be hip with the kids anymore. But who knows? Maybe I'll be 50 bumping his album that he released when he's 70. Who knows? Maybe he'll
Yeah.
channel his Jim Brown here in like 10 years and just start doing swing music.
Maybe. And the reason why I didn't bring up Jay-Z, by the way, just for context of the listeners, I did a whole podcast talking about 444 already, so I feel like I've covered Jay-Z and where I could see his future going. But it was interesting to talk about Kanye West specifically also because I am what some would consider a big Kanye critic. I even think College Dropout's a little overrated.
All right, you can settle down.
But I thought I'd bring, especially now after talking to you about Kanye for pretty extensively, it was cool to hear your sort of perspective and your arguments you had to give for and against both projects. But I did want to ask you, Thomas, just to kind of shift this into a wrapping up direction. We're recording this at the end of 2020. You know, we just had a new Cudi record on the horizon. The year has been a tumultuous one, to say the least. Are you excited for 2021?
Let's hope. Let's hope we can get this whole I know people are probably tired of hearing it. Let's hope we can get this whole pandemic under wraps, keep everyone safe. I think that's the most important in a time right now. And a big time of seclusion with artists. I think 2021 is going to be a big year of hearing a lot of sad music from people, a lot of loneliness in some of the sounds and everything. Hopefully SZA's releasing a new album, so excited for that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so love me some SZA. Hopefully, let's see if Frank Ocean releases an album too. It's been 5 years, so we're due for another one.
What?
But musically, I'm excited because I think we're gonna hear a lot of songs that have the feelings that we've been feeling this year. With just kind of scared of what's going on, not only health wise and pandemic wise, but also just like some unrest in our civil government.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see how that goes. It's always interesting to see kind of how music reflects on the feelings. I feel like a lot of artists don't really know how they feel until they put it to pen and paper. So musically, yes, I'm excited. And hopefully, if we can keep everyone safe, then I'll be excited for that. How about you?
And as far
How is your
Oh, no.
2021 horizon looking?
Great. I've got a lot going on, honestly. I mean, I don't know if you've realized this from either following me in the recent weeks or not, but I'm always working on something, Thomas, and I have a lot of stuff already done for 2021, but also still on the horizon for me personally.
That's good to hear.
I'm excited for the
hear.
music that we got going on.
Sure.
I'm sure that a lot of the stuff that artists that haven't put out something in a while, if they choose to do something, it will be fruitful, whether lyrically, musically. I feel like this has been a real creative era for people because they have been stuck inside. I mean, look at this year alone in music. There's been so much good stuff to come out.
Yeah,
and
historically, a lot of great art has come from times of tragedy. So as kind of, I guess, cynical that is to say, we do get great art out of it. So if we can keep everyone safe, like I said, I'll love to enjoy all that art that comes out of this.
It's true. Now, do you personally have anything on the horizon you'd like to plug, promote, anything you've got going on right now as far as your mini ventures you got going on?
Well, I got a podcast coming out. It's going to be just kind of a 10 episode series. Like, that's it. We're just going to record it and release it. It's about kind of like going through a heart problem throughout your life, and growing up with that. Hopefully that can ease a lot of parents' minds, that kind of have a kid that they just had, that has a similar problem. I know this took a dark turn, but it's something I grew up with.
No, you're good.
So I think it'll ease a lot of people's minds to hear someone who's lived through it for 20 plus years. And hopefully that can ease their mind a little bit. Creatively, hopefully I can finish an album for real this time. I have the same problem Kanye has, and I cannot focus on the same idea for a long time. So I have this project I'm working on. It's called Astra Jumper. It's supposed to be this super trippy, kind of futuristic album. Even though I'm not the biggest Kid Cudi fan, I guess you can say it sounds a little bit like Kid Cudi instrumentally. It has a lot of hints of Vangelis in it, and it also has a lot of hints of like 808s and Heartbreaks, because that is my favorite Kanye record. I'm excited for that. Hopefully it turns out exactly how I want it to, and we'll see if it actually gets released in the next year. So that's what's 2020 is looking for me personally. What do you have anything coming out musically?
I mean, so I've kind of teased this here and there on my Instagram, but I'm working on my next full-length record. I'm going to be taking most of 2021 to make it. I've started working on it now. I have some songs written. I have some sonic ideas sort of put down that I need to flesh out. But it's going to be kind of a tangential record to my first record, which was No Signal. It was like this experimental, electronic, weird record. It's going to be sort of a send-off mentally to that time in my life.
Yeah.
It's the whole record has thematics of closure, acceptance, stuff like that. It's gonna be a big old artsy thing. I might do an EP between that on ideas that I'm writing that aren't involving that.
Yeah.
Along with some covers I've been kind of putting on the back burner for a while. But 2021 is just going to be a lot of shit going on for me. Video-wise, I'm going to get back into streaming more, making more music. For your eyes and ear holes.
I'm ready for my ear holes to be filled with vibrations and sound waves. So
me as well from you, good sir. And I thank you for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it, man.
No problem. You know, you can have me on anytime. As I'll only talk about stuff if I know about it. But anytime you have some questions about some of my favorite artists, I'd love to be on the podcast.
Thanks, man. And if you're listening and you thought of a sort of tangential topic involving these records that we didn't bring up, leave it in the comments down below. I'll address it in the next cast. If you're listening to this not on YouTube, follow me on anywhere else. I'm at Viral Rack. Follow Thomas on, I know you only got Instagram. Do you have any other socials you want to plug?
you can go to my website if you want. That has all my stuff on it. So it's HouyThomas.com. You can go on there. Has some music stuff. Has some Instagram stuff. Has some YouTube stuff. So yeah, it's like a hub of my creativity. So
hell yeah,
yeah, you can even join
dude.
you can even join my newsletter if you want. So
there you go. Join his newsletter. See what the hell Thomas has got cooking in his kitchen. But if you are listening to this on YouTube, give it a like. If you want to see more of my music, gaming, and general nerdy content, subscribe. Special thanks to the patrons. If you want to join their ranks to get early access content, exclusive content, help drive the community with polls, hit that up. I'm Viral Rack everywhere. If you didn't know, VIRALRAK. But we're gonna get out of here. Thank you so much for listening. You guys have good days, lives, and situations, and we'll see you another day.